Ooh. Greetings and welcome to Spin a Yarn Live, the Tea Time Book Club and Crafting Circle. Today we're talking about Ancillary Justice. Bit of a book to get into, quite good, one of our favorites now. Let's see, you can interact with the channel by, if you have a YouTube account, you can go to the chat and live chat with us. You can also go to Twitter and use the hashtag YarnItAll, which I urge you to do now to show us what projects you will be working on during this episode. You can also interact with us via the Reddit r/spinayarnlive. Yes, r/spinayarnlive. And then if you want to interact with other viewers with the crafts you're doing, that's r/yarnitall. I will be keeping an eye on these. So go ahead and go to Twitter, hashtag yarnitall. Show us what projects you're working on. I am still on this bookmark.
He'll never finish it.
I will never finish it.
Nope. It was supposed to be like a door prize kind of thing. No one will ever get it.
No, I was thinking I could do a bookmark an episode and then we could gift it away. It's been, what, like 10 episodes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, something like 11 to 12 episodes now.
We've done a lot. I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm doing lace.
Yay!
Yay!
So, tell us about the tea we have.
Well, today we're just having your standard Irish breakfast from Twinings.
Twinings.
We were in England for a hot minute last week. Literally, we were in London for a day.
Yeah.
And they were serving tea, and they always had milk and sugar with it. And I haven't had tea with milk and sugar since I was a kid, but you know what? It's quite nice. I'm just gonna keep doing it. Probably better if I don't, but meh. So, but yes, that's what we're working on. And I'm working on a Christmas present for someone. And it's very lacy.
Mm-hmm. Super lacy.
I know. I'm not sure how good an idea this was.
You've still got a good foot in there. That's
a foot. My husband's hilarious. This is maybe 8 inches.
That is a foot.
No, because my knitting needle is 7 inches, and this looks suspicious. He's gonna get a tape measure now.
I am gonna get a tape measure.
It's not a foot. It's not a foot, you guys.
10 inches. We're both wrong.
By 2 inches.
A piece.
I said 8, he said 12, and it's 10.
Together, we are right.
No.
The average of us together is correct.
Alright, fine. Sorry.
Anyways.
Anyway.
Ancillary Justice.
Ancillary Justice.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead.
Definitely a step a little bit away from what we've been doing, with the exception of Hitchhiker's Guide, in that this is definitely a sci-fi series. There's no real fantastical elements to it other than it taking place possibly in the future. Because people are referred to as humans.
Yeah.
So maybe it's supposed to, in theory, take place in our future. But it's very, very interesting. Goes without saying, there are spoilers. If you haven't read the book, then don't listen to us, because we're going to spoil the heck out of it. And it's very good, and if you're interested in reading it, I really don't want to spoil it for you, because a lot of stuff happens in the first book. It's trilogy. And a lot of stuff happens in the first book that sets everything up, and then very quickly says, all right, you got it? Here's what's going on. Here we go! And you're just like, oh dear God!
So yeah, this is starting on that path. I really want to take this channel. My goal for this channel is primarily focused on the speculative fiction.
Kitty.
And for me, the definition of speculative fiction is those works that challenge either your ethics or your beliefs or...
Good boy.
your knowledge, and like really make you take a look at yourself and think about things and be like, huh, and then see whether your ethics are only right in specific cases, or if they're generally right. Are you okay with them being generally wrong? That kind of stuff. That's what I really love about a lot of speculative fiction is, it forces you to grow as a person. So this is speculative fiction, though a lot of the challenging things are kind of in the background, like ancillaries.
Okay. So it's called Ancillary Justice, right? So it is from the perspective of a particular ancillary. And what an ancillary is that my husband will probably be able to explain a little bit better. Because it's a little tricky for me. So go ahead. I interrupted him so that I could present him.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the little kitties.
Aww. The 16-pound little kid.
So,
good boy.
Each spaceship has its own artificial intelligence that handles all the systems and whatnot, but they also have ancillary, extra bodies that are basically dead humans that have been preserved.
Ah, but they're not dead. They're called, like, corpse soldiers.
Yeah.
Is what they're called. But they have to breathe, they have to eat, they have to sleep, they do have a heartbeat. So they're not dead. They're puppets.
Yes.
They're human puppets.
Where the ship's AI has overridden the mind of whatever the body's mind had. So they have complete control of the body. It is the ship. Right. There is no other personality in there.
Right. So the person that they were is effectively dead.
Yeah.
But the body itself is still alive. It's weird. This is why I'm not really sure what to make of it.
Yeah, so it's one of those with the Radch Society, goes, invades. Oh, what are they called? The invasions, the taking over.
Oh crap.
I know. As soon as you want to talk about it, the word leaves your mind.
I can see like half the word in my brain.
What is half the word?
It's not like insemination, but it ends with a shun. Yeah, they're not the Borg. Well, are they the Borg?
No.
I mean,
so
no, but enhancements can be done. It's kind of like I used to know it kept reminding me of maybe a movie or a comic book or something where genetic enhancements are commonplace, but the Ugly series by Scott Westerfeld. That's what it was. In that you can well, I mean, Uglies was more about like physical beauty, really, and changing your physical appearance. In this, there are implants that you can do. For instance, there's like when we have to deal with medics, when we have to deal with doctors and stuff, like they have implants that enable them to see someone's heartbeat, know like their blood analysis, stuff like that. So they have these implants that allow them to analyze the subject in front of them. So ancillaries have different and more implants than other people because they're effectively soldiers. So they need to be strong, they need to be fast, they need to be able to see everything and do advanced calculations, and they need to be robots
and be able to house the
physical
AI intelligence of the ship.
Exactly.
So annexations is what the Radch Society does. They annex
ends with shunned
a world, and then like in that bloody combat, ideally there's plenty of bodies to pick up and basically preserve for various ships. Of course, so that's a whole moral question in and of itself. It's like, well, let's consider, what if that was a practice? Is that a moral practice?
Yeah.
I mean, technically no, but then the ships definitely have their own intelligence and all that stuff. So that's one thing.
And even their own personalities, or at least with this particular ancillary that we follow around.
Breck.
Yes, but I was trying to do a pronoun. Pronouns are hard in this
So,
book.
yeah, in Radch Society, I'm assuming you've all read it, so you all know, then Radch Society, there's no gender-based pronouns. In fact, as far as I can tell, there are no genders in Radch Society. There's still sex, or like various of the biological things that we associate with one sex or the other. But none of it has anything to do with gender. It's a genderless society, which is really interesting and done really well.
It is done really well. And that's one of the reasons why it's a little difficult to get into it at first, because the ancillary, the ship personality that we're following, is on a planet at first where there is gender specification. So, you know, you're either male or female, but the default is to just refer to everybody in the feminine.
Yeah,
from our perspective,
their gender neutral pronoun is she or her.
Yeah.
Or mom or daughter,
or daughter or niece or anything. Yeah. It's all in the feminine, which is kind of I won't say it's annoying, because when you're first reading it, it's a little bit difficult, because once you get into the book, it doesn't matter. You don't care. All you're caring about is, well, crap, there's all this stuff going down, and I want to know what's going to happen. But when you first do it, like I was talking with Paul while I was reading it, it's difficult because people read in different ways. Some people just look at the text on the page and they're just, go through it and everything, but oftentimes people have visualizations in their mind. Now, everyone has their own way of doing it, but more often than not, it's kind of like you're watching a play or a movie done in your head. And oftentimes you want to give somebody a physical presence. And there's enough physical description that the individual is of medium build, has brown hair and blue eyes, and has darker skin, and seems to be physically fit. Yeah. It's like, well, that's great. But what kind of face am I supposed to give them? It's like, I don't know.
Just whatever you want.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know.
And with Radch Society, there's enough ways to, get physical work done that there's no way to tell who's what sex, because anything that would be used as a marker for one of, the sexes is used by both sexes. And of course, as I said, it's completely genderless society, and it's done really well. The way it's written, it's not written like everyone's what's the word? Not ambidextrous. Not ambiguous.
Androgynous.
Androgynous. Okay. It's not that everybody's androgynous, because like if you look at sci-fi where there's no gender, everybody tends to just kind of look the same. And that's not the case here. There's people with long hair, there's people with curves, there's people who have lots of muscle. But none of that actually is an indicator of anything. That's just their own fashion. So it's a really wide net, and it's fantastic to read. And like Catherine was saying, it's really hard to get into right at the beginning, because every pronoun is she. And I don't really have a problem with this part, because some of the D&D books recently have started using she as the unknown gender, to try and be more inclusive and whatnot. And, that's fine. That's no different from using he. But when we're on a planet and it's specified that somebody is of the male gender of that planet, and we still use she as a pronoun, that kept throwing me off for a little bit.
It gets a little annoying, because we figure out, when Breck, for lack of a better name, finds this former captain, she keeps referring to her as she, and then a variety of people say, what are you doing with him?
Yeah.
Why are you associating with him? And it's like, okay, so this person is male. But Breck doesn't care. Breck just continues to use the neutral of feminine, and you're just like...
And I mean, same with Syvarden, the captain.
Syvarden.
You know, she wouldn't care, or she would always refer to herself as she as well, even though on this planet, people refer to her as he.
As male. But right. But
so for this review, I'm going to try and use what the book uses as the genderless pronoun of she for everyone. But it's also...
slip.
Yeah. It's also interesting because you get put in that position where you see characters and you're building up your own personality of these characters, and then like every so often your brain will be like, oh, but what gender are they? And you know there's no gender,
right.
but your brain still wants
yourself.
to think about it, and you get in this same exact position that Brett gets in of like, I don't know.
Like, doesn't know. Right.
And which is great. It's a really great way of getting you in the mindset of the character.
Right. Which is, you know, bizarre. Like when you're first associate or reading, you know, the bits with Breck, it becomes, you know, clear that it's said right at the beginning, you know, I've pretended to be human for 19 years or whatever it is. So you're like, okay, so we're not dealing with a human creature. We're dealing with an AI. which is interesting. But what's interesting to me is, again, you know, you're trying to well, in my mind, I'm trying to set up a visualization. Now, it's all from Breck's perspective.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So, as you read and as events start to unfold, you get sucked in, and it doesn't matter. You just want to know what happens next, what's happening at this point. But one thing that I kind of noticed was that, so Breck has a number of discs that unfold to show various gods. What are they called?
I don't know.
I can't remember. There's like a term for it, not like figurine, but there's a term.
Statue?
No, not a statue, and not a statuette. I can't remember what they call it. But anyway, so the body that Breck is currently inhabiting is just, you know, whatever. It's a vessel. As far as the ship is concerned, it really doesn't care. It's able-bodied. It can move. Nothing's broken. It can do stuff, which is good. But one of the gods that like comes out, someone's examining, you know, the discs, and it comes out, and the god is described as having 6 arms and various things, you know, that it's holding, whatever. It seems very almost like a lot of the gods, the way they're described is maybe it's based off of maybe Indian, Hindi gods, because they're all very dark-skinned, and they have multiple arms, and sometimes they have multiple faces and stuff like that, which is kind of a common thing that you see in the Hindu religion. But they're saying how, you know, this particular god has 6 arms and is dark-skinned, and, you know, they describe it, and they say it looks exactly like you. And so I'm sitting here going... So this is like the big thing that my brain got hung up on in the book, is I'm sitting here going, okay, does Breck have 6 arms?
I don't think so. Because
you know, this is a sci-fi series. It's already been stated that, yes, there are alien species that they've assimilated, for lack of a better word, you know, and
people can get modifications.
And people can get modifications and do all this stuff. And if this particular unit, which I'm just going to refer to Breck as a unit, as that's what it was, you know, was, you know, a ship hand and, you know, did various things, I would think that maybe, since it's a computer that can do multiple things with multiple limbs, you know, maybe 6 arms would have been useful. You know, I'm gonna have one hand under this console while I fix this wiring, and this other hand is going to, you know, clean the glass or whatever. You know, so I'm like, does Breck have 6 arms?
I don't think so. A lot of the motion she does, like keeping one hand under her coat to be on the gun and whatnot. And then the free
hand did that. Okay,
yeah, so I think she only has 2 hands. It just the way I interpreted that is she was used either as a model for that deity, or at some point in like past 19 years or whatnot, she did enough for somebody to become a deity in their religion or something. I don't know. It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. But yes, you were talking about the ambiguity of how you would feel about certain things. And I have to be honest, while I was reading the book, I was so engrossed in the character and all that thought never once went through my mind of, oh, is it morally okay to take these humans who are still alive, when because they talk about a hookup process. They actually go into detail about one of the units that gets hooked up to the AI, and Lieutenant Ann is, doesn't like the way the medic is doing it, not because it causes distress to the human subject, but because it disorients the ship.
Yeah.
So she gets upset because it disorients the ship, because the body is reacting, the humanoid body is reacting in this manner of this information that was originally there of Catherine, has now been overridden essentially, and now it is the ship. And
I definitely read it as like that the personality was being killed during that transition.
Right, because like it'll panic, like there was a sense of claustrophobia it talked about, and then like the body reacts in certain ways, which chemically, when you react to fear in certain ways, different people do different things. And like in this one, the body reacted, it's convulsing, it vomits a couple of times, and it's just like I'm sitting here, I'm concerned about the ship. I'm like, oh, this ship is so upset right now, because you're invested in the character of the ship.
Yes.
And like only in the very back of my brain am I going, well, what about the person that they just essentially killed? But the front of my brain is like, oh no, the ship. Oh, it's so sad. The lieutenant wants to make sure the ship is okay.
That
like I never really thought about it.
Because that person was also not a citizen, because it was and Radch society only cares about citizens. Now once they annex you, you get assimilated into the culture and you become a citizen. But during the annexation, if you can't have tea.
He's in my way.
During the annexation, if you rebel or try and do anything against the Radch fleet,
you get shot.
Yeah.
Dead.
You're less than you're not you're not a citizen, so there's no problem with just taking that person and basically killing them, or killing them later on to be useful. Which is
weird. So like there are situations where that becomes a bit of an issue, like with Lieutenant Ann, when they're on the planet and she's given the command to kill the citizens. Who are citizens. They are full citizens. Now, they are purposefully causing a disruption, which is bad, but legally they're citizens now. So, of course, the lieutenant does hesitate. She's like, well, but they're contained. We have everybody here. It's not like we can't arrest them and send them off for re-education. Brainwash them. And do all those things. I can't. Kitty! I need some sugar.
Okay. You can have some sugar.
Thank you.
So...
This is the cat's fault.
It really is.
Milk.
You can't have milk.
Milk. Please put the cozy back on the teapot.
I'm working on it, but you were complaining about sugar.
Anyway. So, it definitely becomes an issue. But what I like about this book, which I can't say for a lot of books, is that it does the time hop thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're in the present, and then we do a flashback, and then present, and flashback, blah, 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 blah. And usually that annoys me to no end. And there are a couple books that I can mention that I don't care for, specifically for that reason.
Yeah.
I won't name them because I don't want to poo-poo any books, but there's a particular book that I really don't like, and I ended up not finishing the series because I was like, it's dumb. But the way...
Oh, jeez. Everything's fine. Everything is fine.
This is antique, and I was lucky to find it.
Everything's fine.
For cheap. I stress that. But so with this one, the first time it happened, I was kind of like, oh, we're going to do the jumpy thing. But as soon as it started talking about this, the past when the we got squirrels.
Yeah, squirrel was just outside the window.
When you know, the ship is talking about the past, because in the present it's just the one. It's just Breck, because the ship is dead.
Yeah, one ESK-19.
Yeah, one
so
ESK-19.
The 19th unit of the ESK-Dex 1 unit, which is, like 24 humanoids.
Oh, yeah. It's all very confusing. But anyway, so we're just focusing on that. But then we keep jumping back to when the ship was itself, and it was the ship, and it had 20 bodies that it had on the planet, and then it had all the bodies that were within it doing maintenance and all the things it was supposed to be doing, and which is really cool. I was kind of like, this is kind of neat. It's kind of like having a bazillion and a half datas, you know?
Yeah.
Except not as annoying. I like Data. He's okay. Anyway, so when it was jumping around, I was a little concerned about it. But then once you get into it, even in the present, when Breck is talking to the doctor and is trying to, you know, get the weapon from the doctor and everything, when a paragraph ends, just the way it ends, you expect it to jump back so we can see what happened with Lieutenant Ann 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, you expected it to happen, and I was actually, there was at one point it didn't happen, and I was a little disappointed.
Yeah.
I was like, but what happens in that? Okay, fine, keep reading. You know, and it was, you know.
Yeah. And you can't, like, I've already read this, this book twice. Once first through, and then once just for this episode. And I want to, at some point, try and read it, like, from Breck's timeline, from 1ESK-19's timeline, which will not flow as well.
No. Be like
and
watching
just to
Memento.
see. But yeah, like, if you tried to put that in order, it just would not work as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
the flow wouldn't work.
The great thing is this book works so well in the order it's put in. And, like, all of the background is basically exposition. But by doing it the way it does and having all the drama back there, it's really compelling exposition that you want to find out more.
You do.
And it also helps that you start off with, in the present, with Breck, with 1ESK-19, walking around saying that she's not human, you know, saying all these other things, and there's a lot of mystery to it. You're like, well, what is this thing? You know, what's going on? Why is she used as all the pronouns and all that kind of stuff? So it has a lot of mystery and whatnot, and a lot of intrigue and a lot of world building that's done really well.
And then you figure it out and you go, oh, okay, it used to be a ship, and you're kind of reading along, and then it didn't strike me until like a couple chapters in, and I go, well, wait, why is she the only one left? Why is there only one? How'd that happen? And you're just like, oh my god!
Yeah.
And I stopped again in the middle of the road. Dang it.
But yeah, so the basic plot is a basic revenge story, you know. Somebody gets inducted young to a side of a government, and then the other side tries to induct them, hurts someone they care about, so they go off, find a MacGuffin to try and take down government, take down the one that they don't like, and end up putting themselves in the position of the one they do like. Super basic plot line, which I think is important because the world building, the perspective of having an AI character with all the ancillaries, all these other things going on are complicated, that having that kind of basic plot spine really kind of holds it together. You seem very eager to talk, so I'm going to keep talking and not like, yeah!
I'll tickle him. What gets really confusing is when you get towards the end and you realize what's going on. And what's going on is that the leader of the universe or whatever is... It's a little weird. I'm not sure if it's a ship, if it's another AI, or if it's an actual individual who's kind of downloaded themselves and created kind of an AI about them. But there's the individual, Anander... Minai. So Anander Minai is like the lord of the Radch, and thus is the ruler, the lord of everybody, right? Of everybody who is a citizen.
And yeah, she has
and she has
hundreds, if not thousands, of bodies.
Right. So kind of like how a ship will have multiple ancillaries. You know, Ander has multiple.
Anander.
Anander, excuse me. Anander has multiple ancillaries too, if you will. Except they're not soldiers. Some of them have armor, some of them don't. Some of them can fight, some of them can't. Some of them are elderly. One of them is 5 years old and it's really creepy.
Yes. Yes. 5-year-old leader of the Radch is super creepy.
Eating a pastry. Here's your gun. It's just like.
Which, I mean, at that point.
It's like a creepy scene from the Mercedes Thompson universe, and it's a fae. You don't know how old the fae is, but it's in the body of a tiny little girl, and you're just like, this is weird.
It also reminds me of, yeah, that's not a spoiler, the archive from Dresden Files. Now, I won't say anything more about that, because that would be,
Oh, that archive, yes.
Yes, totally. That would be spoilers, but just naming it, like, soon as you get the name, you get the character, so that's fine.
Yeah, but, so anyway, so the confusing bit is this part, in that at some point, we're not sure when, and we're not sure how, but at some point, the mind of Anander has split.
Yeah.
And for lack of a better word, some of the bodies are on one side, some of the bodies are on the other side. And it's like, first of all, who do you trust? What side do you want to be on?
Well, not only that is, because he's Lord of the Radch, you have to obey him.
You have to obey.
And that means all of him, even when he's... Or
divided.
when she's against herself.
When she's divided. And it's, you know, especially the ships. So even Breck is not immune to it, even though there's only one part of Justice of Torn's AI left within Breck. She still has to obey any commands that Anander gives her, even if it's bad or Anander. But even Breck is like, well, it doesn't matter because it's you, and it's you at your core, and you can't fight yourself, and all this stuff, and I'm just going to kill everybody that I can.
Yeah.
You can't, as soon as you give me an order to not.
Well.
But there's this whole paragraph where it's like, talking about me, myself, and I. And you have to really read the paragraph very carefully, otherwise you're like, oh yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And it can get very frustrating, because you're just like, this is really confusing. But because it's from the AI's perspective, of course she's got everything filed away, and she knows exactly where everything is and how all the pieces fit together, and you're sitting here going, I'm not a computer. And I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if we want to trust the little child or if we want to trust the old person, but the old person is dead, and the kid's giving orders and eating pastries and getting crumbs on the gun, apparently, which really annoyed Breck for some reason. Like, it's really...
I mean, yeah, based on
a trip.
Breck's goals, she wants to kill all of Anander Minai.
Right.
Basically just overthrow the entire government.
Right. She doesn't want any of it, and... No, you. Sorry, there's a bird, like, right there. Still there. Anyway. And, you know, and it all comes down to, because of the division of consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, leads to the unfortunate death, it was very, very sad, of Lieutenant Ann.
Which you really get to love.
You really do.
And almost as much as One-esque does. Yeah. And by One-esque, I mean the entire 21-esque.
Yeah. Justice of Torn, like, flat out says that Lieutenant Ann was one of her favorites.
Yes.
Right? Which is, so not even her captain is really that much of a favorite, but she really likes Lieutenant Ann. Yeah. Lieutenant Ann is really cool. But then all this crap goes down with the oars and the tan mind and all of that, and which leads to Anander, you know, giving the ship the order to shoot the lieutenant. Yeah. And she can't refuse a straight up order. Yeah. So she does, and then she immediately is like, well, I'm pissed off now, and shoots Anander in the face.
What I also love, so let's go to the author really quick, is there's a little interview in the back of the first book, which is nice, and talks about how to present an AI. And one of the things Ann Leckie was saying is, you know, the AI with sometimes thousands of human bodies all seeing and hearing and doing things at once, the thought of that kept me from even starting for a long time. How do you show that? Blah, blah, blah. And then later on, but a character like Justice of Turin also sees a great deal, and so can act as an essentially omniscient narrator. And let's just say, Ann Leckie, you did a fantastic job representing an AI that has thousands of bodies. You nailed it. But, so one of the interesting things is, while one asks these 20 units that are assigned to
the
Lieutenant Ann are in the church temple given the order to kill civilians.
They're separate at this point.
Yeah. Something went down and all of Justice of Turin is separate from themselves. That's like each of your fingers having no idea what your brain wants. They're cut off like right here and they don't know what's going on anymore. That's basically what it is.
Like they know they should and they're sitting there going, oh, yeah. Crap.
So they kind of interact by looking at each other and, actually, talking. Which is so inefficient.
Oh my god, terrible.
But so they're in there, and while they're split, the bad Anander Minai, and I will describe this in a moment.
Was it the bad one?
Yes.
We don't know. I don't know. How'd you figure it out? From just this book. He's read the other two books. I have not. So
no, just from this book.
No spoilers.
But the bad Anander Minai
gives them the order.
Well, first talks or turns to one of the 1-esque units, which is not 1-esque 19, which we find out in this section. We don't find out, but there's a very good guess based on all the writing. That's 1-esque 19 who's narrating it. Anander Minai asks one of the other 1-esque units, when was last time we've talked? And the other unit gives a date that is not the date that 1-esque 19 knows. It was even further back. And 1-esque 19 is like, we've actually talked more recently than that. And that's because the good Anander Minai, and I'll describe what I mean by that in a second, basically did talk to 1-esque 19 before separated and added controls and whatnot in there because she wanted to spy on, Justice of Turin and whatnot. And, wanted to get Justice of Turin on her side instead of her side. And yes, as confusing as it sounds. So, we get that, and then later, when the bad Anander tells Justice of Turin to shoot Lieutenant Ann, Justice of Turin as the big ship, again, doesn't, or is a fan of Lieutenant Ann, but it's really kind of the 1-esque unit that's the biggest fan, again, and then it's really 1-esque 19 who is, for all intents and purposes, in love with Lieutenant Ann, so...
Not like in a romantic way.
No.
More in a...
Yes.
Maybe, love, but not romantic.
Yeah. So, yeah, the other units just shoot Lieutenant Ann, and then just because there's still that feeling going on, then turn and shoot Anander. Meanwhile, knowing this is wrong, Justice of Turin sends out a bunch of last-minute instructions to everyone, to all the individual units, because then a device gets switched on and everybody gets separated again, and it gets confused again. So 1-esque 19's mission is to escape the ship and, fly out of this time bubble that they're in while they're traveling. All sorts of adventures. And so, yeah, you get this idea of, this whole ship, but then also these individual pieces still kind of have their own things going on. And because, 1-esque 19 was always a singer and always sang and,
Well, not like 1-esque was a good singer, because even she kind of admits, this body does not have a good voice, but it can play an instrument.
Yeah.
It's obsessed with music, and this is something that maybe will come back later in the other two books, but the ship itself has a fascination with music.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of that comes from the 1S19 unit, something that stayed through the overriding of the personality is how I feel it happened, and then just kind of integrating the ship AI with the personality AI, and it came up because the other like 2S unit and the other S units don't hum, they don't sing or whatnot. It's only 1S, those 20 units, because if you remember when they went back up to the ship, the other lieutenants on Esk deck,
right,
they were saying, oh, it's a relief, or it's weird to hear 1S not singing, it's relief to hear
2S.
No.
1S was with Lieutenant on,
So,
2S was on the ship.
Well, yeah, 2 and the other S units.
Right.
They were fine with the other S units not singing, but 1S came up, and for that first day, she did not sing because she was upset by, killing civilians.
Right, but they make comment about how the ship itself, it's not just that, it's just not 1S19.
No, it was 1S, well, yeah, it was 1S that wasn't humming,
right.
Which was weird, and then 1S started humming again, and
1S being 20 units.
Yes, but the other S units were not in the habit of humming.
What are you doing?
Looking outside.
Cyrus. Cutie.
Good boy. So yeah, I feel like was something that got brought in from 1S19, spread to the other 1S units, but really didn't make it much further than that. The idea of singing. So it's, one of these weird things. Anyway, so yeah, bad Anander and good Anander. In this book, the good Anander has basically said no more ancillaries. We are no longer making ancillary units.
I thought that was the bad Anander. I am confused.
Well, they're both bad. So one of the Ananders said no more ancillaries, no more annexations. We are going for peace.
No, we're going for treaty. Because this one alien species absolutely could and would destroy us easily.
Yes.
Which they're not used to.
So yeah, we're going treaties, we're going with no longer annexing and whatnot. The other Anander wants to go back the more conservative way, go back and, just having ancillaries, having annexations, spreading and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and the thing is that there's... And see, here's the part where you can kind of get divided. It's like, well, are ancillaries good or bad?
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, from the way the book was written, I kind of liked the idea of ancillaries. Because they talk about how, well, the human troops will, they'll humiliate.
Rape and pillage.
They'll do all these things just to, show they're powerful. An ancillary, which is an AI unit, if you get uppity, will just shoot you in the head. Yeah. Which is terrible, you die, but at the same time, you're not being tortured or humiliated. Yeah. They just can't. So that's why I was kind of like, well, no, I think the idea of the ancillary is good.
Well, as far as soldiers go, ancillaries are the better option.
Right,
for soldiers. But if we're no longer annexing and no longer having soldiers effectively...
Then effectively you wouldn't need them, but... There's, the security force on station were human. Yeah. And of course they got all confused. Yeah. Everything got confused, I mean, not that Mercy of, Mercy of what? Kaller. Not that Mercy of Kaller wasn't confused. When Justice of Torn was like, don't let it end.
That was another great scene. Another great congratulatory scene to Ann Leckie is, Breck is on a little pod headed towards Mercy of Kaller, who does not have any ancillary units anymore, so she only has human units to control around.
She misses her ancillary.
She does. But a lot of Anander are trying to get into the little mini ship that Breck is on. And, Breck is trying to explain everything to Mercy of Kaller. And Mercy of Kaller, the ship... You can see the wheels turning, which is really hilarious because, big, huge AI controlling ship, used to control, thousands of ancillaries, but something still can confuse them long enough that you can still see the wheels turning.
Because it makes the comment, she mentally thinks, she says, oh, and Andrew's gone crazy, don't let any of them aboard, blah, 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 this is Justice of Torn. And the Mercy of
Caller.
thank you. Mercy of Caller says things. How do I know you're Justice of Torn? And Justice is like, interesting that she didn't question about Anander.
Going, yeah.
It's like,
There's things. But yeah, just seeing the wheels spinning, and it's believable. It's believable that it would take a ship a little while to think of this.
It is.
In the way that the whole ships are described in this, and all the AI and whatnot. And it's just really well written. It's like, Anne was able to give such personality to these ships. These almost non-emotional ships. Almost.
Because, she angry, all right?
Yeah.
Justice of Torn is
angry.
so angry. She's like, you killed her.
Yeah.
It was,
oh man,
she gets so angry at poor,
Syvarden?
No. I mean, yes.
Well, yes.
Syvarden's kind of annoying. But, the other lieutenant. Because, immediately she wants to ask, what are you doing for her sister? What are you doing for the family? And, blah, 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 blah. She's trying so hard to be emotional. So one scene that I really like is when, just before, in one of the flashbacks, so before Justice of Torn is torn apart, is she's playing counters, she's playing a game with one of the human soldiers that's under Lieutenant Skate. Maybe I think that's how you say it. The names are very difficult to pronounce.
Which?
The lieutenant that Lieutenant Ann was sleeping with.
Strigan? Was it Strigan?
Skate. It's like Skaeeaiat.
No, Skaaiat. Skyet.
Skyet.
Is how I'm pronouncing it. Skyet. Skyet.
Anyway. So one of her soldiers, who is human, not connected to an AI unit, is playing a board game, and makes some comments because the lieutenants are upstairs, making whoopee and whatnot, and is worried that it's insulted Justice of Torn, and says, I didn't mean any offense. And Justice of Torn is like, I'm not offended. You didn't offend me, all this stuff. And he goes, you hear rumors about ships having feelings and, however subtle they are. And so Justice of Torn decides to make the unit that it's currently in smile. In a very, convincing, yay, smile. It's not a creepy smile. It's just smile. Happy smile. But he gets creeped out because you go from totally stoic, robotic face to, hi. And he's like, oh, God. Don't do that. I loved it. I mean, I almost laughed out loud when I read that. I was like,
yeah, that's good.
That's funny.
Okay, so what did you think about Syvarden?
Syvarden is a puzzle. So we first meet Syvarden, and he's a junkie essentially. She's a junkie. We'll go with she, even though pretty sure it's male. Yeah,
one of the I think 3 characters that we actually do learn the sex of is Syvarden.
Gender.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, Radch society doesn't have gender.
Right. He's got male bits. Male parts. Anyway.
Or at least the other society considers her to be male.
No boobies.
Well, we don't know that.
Anyway.
I mean, on that world, boobies could be male.
Makes no sense.
Okay.
Very glands. Anyway. So what did I think of him? So... it's a toss-up, because by the end of this book, you're fairly convinced that if he's not, or she, we'll just go she, if she's not falling in love with Breck, there's some sort of camaraderie there, because she doesn't want to leave Breck. She tried once, and it didn't work out too well. She got thrown in jail and got into a fight and all this stuff. And Breck has money, even though she's not really sure how. Because at this point, she doesn't figure out that Breck is an ancillary until almost the very end of the book.
Yeah.
So, but she insists on staying with Breck. Even when Anander is, giving Breck an assignment and is like, well, obviously, what's his name? What's their name?
Whose name?
The captain.
Syvarden?
Syvarden. I can't remember his names. Syvarden, telling Syvarden that because she's woken up from 1,000-year stasis, so she's totally confused and disoriented by basically jumping 1,000 years, which anyone would be. Culture's changed, clothing has changed, all these things have changed, and she's like, oh my god, I don't know what's going on. Understandable. And she flat out says, I'm not leaving Breck. I'm not leaving her at all.
And
it's like, and so to answer your question, I'm not sure, because initially, just like Breck, I was really annoyed. I'm like, oh my god, this person is just, this former captain is all snooty, and like it's just after her next hit, and all this stuff, and you're like, no, why would you even bother sailing her from the stupid bridge? I say let her fall. I don't give a shit.
But she starts like so at first she kind of doesn't try. She's just along for the ride, but then she starts kind of trying.
Yeah,
and she kind of grows on you. She's still not the greatest character. Like, I wouldn't want her to be the main character.
Right. And
I probably wouldn't want to know her in real life, but she starts growing on you, and you're like, okay.
Well, maybe.
I'm not upset that you're still here.
I guess not, but at the same time, like, even Breck makes mention of how the attitude change seems very swift.
Yeah.
Like, and it's still, in my opinion, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is an ally or if this is not, to be completely honest with you. And I guess I'll find out in the next couple books. But yeah, like, when I first finished the book, that was the first thing I said to you, is I'm like, I'm pretty sure she's in love with Breck.
Yeah.
It seems to make sense.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. I mean, obviously, she's been assigned to be with Breck on
the ship.
Breck's been assigned to captain the Mercy of Kalar.
Which Breck's like, I don't want that.
Yeah, it's one ship captaining another ship. And not only that, it's a Justice ship captaining a Mercy, which you get in the first book. There's
a hierarchy.
I don't know whether it was built into their AI or if it just kind of naturally came out. But yeah, there's
Mercy, Sword, and then Justice. Justice are the warships, which is what Justice of Torn was. She was built as a warship. And then
warship or a troop carrier?
She says troop carrier, but she became like, because she was built like over 2,000 years ago, right? And initially she was a warship, and then she became a troop carrier as annexations became less and less and less.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll read more books and get more.
Right, but yeah, so and then there's the Sword, which is kind of like security personnel or whatever, and then there's a Mercy, which is little more really than a bus.
See, I always thought that swords were more of the military attack ships, whereas the Justices were the bigger ships. So, like, the swords would be the first on the scene to destroy any other military, but they don't have enough to...
I think they are now. ...take
over, and then the Justices are the ones that become the everything.
Right.
And they're the ones that actually enact the...
Like I said, I think they are now, because Justice of Torn talks about how all of her like corridors and everything used to be full of life and full of people, and now really a lot of them are shut down. Well, now 20 years ago, a lot of them were shut down, and she kind of missed it, but eventually she got used to it. Yeah. So from what I've deciphered,
which I can
Justices were the warships that came in with all the ancillaries and all of the soldiers and everything, and laid down the law and gave justice.
Yeah, I think they're the ground, not only the ground troops, but the ground new government.
Right. They're there to establish civilization and justice and all
whereas
that.
I think the swords are mainly for space battles.
Right. But the point is that the Justices were looked upon as higher. They were the high
we hear
ranking.
About that from a Justice character.
Right.
And I think they all have...
Which still makes sense from the perspective of now Justice is captaining a Mercy. It's still kind of like it's kind of a demotion when you think about it. And even the Mercy is not, the Mercy kind of makes not a snide remark, but it's it's like, you can be my captain. And Breck's like, why don't you be your own damn captain?
Yeah.
Like,
no, I think all the different ships do have a lot of prejudice against all of the other types of ships, and I think they all think that they're the top.
Which is weird because, it's an AI unit. It's not really supposed to think that way. But it does.
But yeah, it's one of those... We don't know whether that was programmed into them to, make sure that they don't ally too much or something.
Or
if it was just kind of an emergent property. So that's also an interesting
Which they make
of.
mention, because even Anander, is like, is this something that's just sort of happened, as it's continued on, or because the AI unit is so old, and it's kind of like, again, in Mercy Thompson, when they talk about magical items that are very powerful and were made so long ago that they're old and powerful, and they kind of develop their own personalities, even though, initially it was just a walking stick. Now it's Lord knows what.
Yeah, and we do learn in this book that Anander originally created the ships to, love him and love their captains, but that caused a lot of problems.
It did.
So
what happens when your captain, who is very mortal, dies?
Yeah. And the ship suicides.
Grievous.
So... Yeah, Anander, she had to give more freedom of who they like to the ships, and it's one of those tightrope balancing is how much freedom do you give this AI when you still want to control them? So that's also really well done. I want to keep control of you, but I need to give you some freedom, and it's really. Yeah. One of those hard things. Of course, something that we're kind of debating with in the scientific community is we don't really want to control general AI, but we still want to be able to prevent it from killing us.
We don't want Skynet. We don't need that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and that's probably the less likely version of how computers take over. But it's still one of those things in AI research, strong AI research of how do you teach a computer morals and ethics? How do you, train them to value human life, but without, making it a programmed thing? Because if you make it a programmed thing, then they can program future AIs to not have that.
Right. And it's... Because you don't want a HAL 9000 on your... You don't want them to look at the humans and go, well, the humans are endangering the mission. And the mission is top priority. So I'm just going to kill all the humans. I'm going to tell the captain to literally take a chill pill. Did anyone else notice that in 2001: A Space Odyssey? Calm down, Dave. Why don't you take a sedative and we'll talk about this in the morning. Just told Dave to take a chill pill. I love it.
It's great. But yeah, a lot of science fiction is behind the times with current AI research for obvious reasons. But all that said, Ann Leckie, I think, does a really good job of exploring these ideas without making it be, this horror story, which you often see, or the utopia story, which you always see. There's a lot of depth to Ann Leckie's writing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's great. Like I said, we probably need to start wrapping it up. I mean, it can be a little tricky to get into because of the ambivalence of, the main character, the individual that we're reading the stories from, their perspective. They're a total ambivalence to whether the character is male or female. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's just a character. And that can be a little difficult for some people.
Yeah, especially if you
want to do that.
Yeah, are originally reading books that don't do that, which are, I think, every other book right now.
Well, and so here's the thing. I've been reading Patricia Briggs', Mercy Thompson, Alpha Omega series altogether, and that's because in the Werewolf Society, in her books, gender roles are kind of very clearly defined in that the male is always going to be the alpha. Any females in the pack either take their rank from their mated alpha, or if they're not mated, they're at the bottom of the pack. Blah, 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 all this stupid stuff. Right. But, and then you go from reading stuff like that, where because of that, there's a lot of intimate scenes. You go from that to this, which is very cold and clinical, and it was kind of hard to make the jump. Because I'm sitting here going, well, maybe the captain, the two lieutenants go up because they've been sleeping together and all that, and you're thinking, well, now wait, are they male or female? Are they both male? Are they both female? I kind of want to know, but the machine's like, I don't give a fuck. And you're like, oh, well, I guess I don't care either. It takes a little while to get used to it, but really, by the time you get to chapter 6, you don't care because you're sitting here going, how did everything lead to this, and what's going to happen? And oh my god!
Yeah, that's really good. I did find myself gendering people a lot. which is, again, why I love speculative fiction, because it shows you something about yourself and you're like, am I okay doing this, or do I need to figure out how to change? And this is something I do want to figure out how to change. So thank you, Ann Leckie.
Yeah.
But I found I was trying so hard, like my brain was trying so hard to gender people based on like how they talked, you know.
How they acted.
Yeah, how they acted. Nothing that has anything to do with sex, but everything to do with how our society feels gender roles should be. Yeah. And I wanted to gender them based on our gender rules, even though they're not gendered. And I kept having to stop myself. So it's like, my second read through, I started trying to purposely gender people the opposite way just to get, you know, to like overshoot in one direction to start, you know, finding that middle ground. But again, like you say, by the time you're at chapter 6, you don't care anymore. You're in it for the ride. And then I just completely lose everything anywhere.
Because again, I had started out with it because you find out fairly early that, at least from the perspective of the natives on the planet we start off on, Breck is in the body of a female. From their perspective, it's a female. So you're just like, okay. And then later you find out that the captain, the 1,000-year-old captain, is male, and you're like, okay. But then it's not mentioned ever again.
Well, the doctor
The doctor repeatedly does that.
Well, I still don't know.
The female, by the way.
Okay, is she?
The doctor is actually female.
That's what I was thinking, because I was gendering her male.
I did it first.
I kept gendering her male, and Breck gendered her as male at the beginning, and then we found out later that the doctor says, the way you misgender people, and Breck is like, oh, I messed it up. Yeah. So it's like...
Because that was kind of a giveaway that she was from that particular society, at the very least, because they don't have gender specifications.
So... yeah, that's proof that that the doctor considers herself female.
Well, someone at one point also refers to her as female. The girl, the daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's one of those things like I kept gendering this person male, and that was wrong, and it was wrong of me to do that, obviously. But it's like
right, but like for me, my brain kept trying to do it at the first part of the book, but again, by the time you get to a certain point, it really doesn't matter, because all you're sitting there thinking is, okay, how'd the ship get in the situation that it's in right now? How's it going to get out of this situation? Is it going to get out of this situation? And what's it going to do with an Ander now that it's got the gun? Yeah. What's it going to do? And it does, and all of a sudden it really doesn't matter. And when you're reading it from the perspective of the ship, it becomes pointless to try. Because even in their society, ancillaries, even on other planets where annexations have taken place, they don't have a gender. You know, even if they're within a female body or a male body, it really doesn't matter because the identity of the individual being either female or male is gone.
Yeah, because you're a ship. You're a ship with thousands of female bodies and thousands of male bodies and everything in between.
I do like the one line where... you know, an Ander wants the ship to be its sword arm, essentially, and the ship goes, you can go F yourself. And the ship says, could actually literally do that, given, you know, the multiple body situation. And you're just like... like, there's that tiny little bit of... The ship is 2,000 years old, but also kind of maybe only like a 13-year-old boy. You know? I totally could!
Yeah. No, I can't. I mean, so I've read the entire trilogy. You've only read the first book.
Indeed.
I am excited to see what you think of what's coming. Obviously, no spoilers. But I'm super excited about this series. I picked it up on a whim because I mentioned in a previous episode that I'm getting upset with all of the books I just happened to be picked up. Most of the books I happened to pick up as a child just happened to be...
all written by old white men.
Now, like...
Here's Anthony.
My favorite series, the Enchanted Forest Chronicles, that was written by a female.
Yeah.
With a female lead for the first book.
And for one of the other books, too.
Yeah. So... no, that's good.
Yeah.
But, so I was upset. I was in Barnes & Noble, almost said Borders, which doesn't exist anymore, sad.
Rip Borders.
Rip Borders. But in Barnes & Noble, and I saw this trilogy set, and I mentioned this last episode, winner of the Hugo Award, winner of all these different awards, and on the box of the box set, it said like something like the only science fiction book to win every science fiction award, and that just looks cheesy to me. But I was like, well, it's one of the awards, it's written by a woman, let me just give it a try. Now, since then, my mom has given me a huge email list of some of her favorite authors, some of the female authors who have done really great things in the
Stop saying
sci-fi community. Sorry. And so we're going to go with some of those. I'm picking and choosing some of those. But yeah, so I picked this off a whim before that. It's like, let's just give it a shot. It looks cheesy with all of its won every award. Like a used car salesman. And now he's sad there's only 3. I'm sad there's only 3. She is writing more books, but not in the same universe, but not with the same setting. Which you'll understand once we get through this trilogy. Sorry. But yeah, so for being picked up on a whim, this trilogy has become one of my favorite book series, just in general. It's really shot up there. Nice.
I'm reading Harry Potter again. Because it's that time of year.
We almost debated just doing Harry Potter because I had the hardest time getting her to read this book because she was trying to get through all of the Mercy Thompson series, which we will do on this channel at some point. That's going to be one of our longer...
It's a long one, because even if we just focus on Mercy Thompson and don't even talk about Alpha Omega or the short stories, that's still 8 or 9 books.
Yeah, I think once we finish the Hitchhiker's trilogy...
The increasingly misnamed.
Yeah. The increasingly inaccurately named Hitchhiker's trilogy. I do love Douglas Adams, I'm sorry.
5 books.
But once that happens, I think we'll... move Mercy Thompson into that slot. But yes, so instead of doing Harry Potter, which I figured, I almost thought we would do just because she is reading it, and I'm going to have trouble getting her to read anything else. But no.
It'll take me 7
days. Yeah, Harry Potter takes you. Yeah, I have words for Harry Potter, both positive and negative.
I have words for Harry Potter too, both positive and negative. I'm only I just started reading the first book the other day, and I'm only a chapter and a half in. And already I'm sitting here going, you know what? All those other people who were criticizing Dumbledore and everything, they're absolutely right. This is a terrible environment for Harry to grow up in. He is abused. He's totally abused by the Dursleys. And it's like, this is not okay. It's not okay.
So yeah, my 2 cents on Harry Potter is I super respect and appreciate Harry Potter for getting people to read. I think that was the first...
It's the first you were real
the
book
age
series.
to get into it.
I was a little old. I think I was 13, 14 when I actually first picked up the books. And of course the age demographic is supposed to be
2 years younger.
Right, pretty much 11 all the way up to 17, which is what J.K. Rowling went for. And I think she did a very good job of doing aging with the audience, because I really wouldn't put the
So I super respect getting more people to be readers. Mm-hmm. I love it. The Lord of the Rings movie trilogy. I don't think that got anyone to read the Lord of the Rings books.
That's because
I really don't think so.
Books are long-winded. He spends 3 pages talking about how green Hobbiton is. Look, green is my favoriteest color in the entire universe, but I got a little tired of that.
But so I super respect that. And all props to J.K. Rowling. All of them.
Yes.
However, from a reader who reads speculative fiction, who reads a lot of very complicated things...
No, it's a children's series.
It's a children's series, but even for children's series, even...
the world building is actually pretty good. But as far as the actual story goes, you're
so basic.
It's really basic. It's the Heroes trilogy.
Yeah. And the characters are not smart, any of them.
They're not.
Any of them.
My favoriteest characters are the Weasley twins.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about Harry Potter, you know that the twins don't survive. I mean, one of them does, but
Yeah.
it's still just like, oh my god, it's terrible. I hate it. Why would you kill Fred?
The only smart characters.
He was.
It was. Anyways, but yeah, like even Enchanted Forest Chronicles was a children's book, and I find that more sophisticated than Harry Potter. But again, with that said, super respect for it because it got people into reading, and
Like me, I was not a reader.
it's a gateway
I didn't
drug,
read
and now you're reading
of it.
Ann Leckie.
And now, now I'm reading everything. We're doing a series based on books.
I know. It's great. So yeah, mad props to Harry Potter. But yeah, so that's my 2 cents. Both positive and negative can be boiled down to one of those two things.
The best book is the third one. I don't care if anyone likes any of the other books better. The third one's the best. I love Sirius Black. He's cool.
If you are watching this from the future and going,
Hi, from the past. We are people of the past. Anyway.
look at our conservative ways of having meat bodies.
You can tell. We got Rick and Morty
Oh,
here.
yes.
Rick and Morty.
So, no, what I'm saying is if you're watching the playlist, so you're only watching series by series instead of watching in order, the next one in this series is Ancillary Sword, which is a little weird because I thought it was going to be Ancillary Mercy because Justice of Torn is now piloting Mercy. So
Is it still here's my question that isn't I don't think is spoiler based. Is it still from Breck's perspective?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the entire... I mean, yeah, that is
The
kind of
entire
spoilery, but the entire trilogy is
From Breck's
from,
Okay.
Justice of Torn's perspective.
That's good because the one series I didn't want to mention because it's well, no, you know what? Screw it. Aragon. I love the first book, and then in the second book, I don't remember the name of the second book, but they start switching between Aragon and his cousin, and I couldn't give 2 cents about his cousin, and then the third book was totally from the cousin's perspective, and I was like, I'm not reading it. I don't care. It's boring.
Nope. Rest of the Ancillary series is from Sivardens. No. No, it's all Justice of Torn. Don't worry. It's...
Okay. Good.
They're all just as good as this one, and even more compelling than this one.
It's gonna get even more confusing with which Anander is good and which Anander is bad. I bet it will! I bet it'll get stupid.
Well, again, they're both bad. It's which Anander is treaties and no ancillaries versus which Anander is the whole conservative war-based Anander.
Well, we can't have the war-based one because then the Presker. Yeah, then the Presker race will annihilate us all. Annihilate them all. Because they're apparently way more technologically advanced. Because that's where the Gernard... Maybe the Gernard people... That's where they got the gun and the armor from.
Yeah.
From the
guns that the AIs
Presker.
cannot see, which are cool.
Right, and then... And can shoot through the armor and everything.
Yes.
So we don't want war with them because they'll destroy everything.
So,
but next week
we're doing Myth Directions. Now you may notice this is a well-loved book.
he's destroyed.
No.
The cover is just
It
falling
came like this.
apart.
Well,
It came like this. It's Bill's fault. If you're watching it, your name is on here, Bill. It's
yeah, your name is on here, Dad.
It's your fault.
Or
it's his grandfather's fault.
Yeah, this
There's
was
a pattern in this family.
copyright 1982. Printing.
My brother was alive, but not my sister.
It looks like the printing of this was 1985.
Sorry, I was reading the first quote.
So yeah, this book is as old as I am, and it's in about as good as shape as I am.
No comment.
But yes, Myth Directions. This is a good one. This I think is
silly.
my third favorite book of the Myth series.
Silly.
So yeah, last book was my favorite or second favorite. This is my third favorite. Yeah, last book was my second favorite. Again, this is going to be a quick read. So if you want to read the rest of Ancillary because you're just so into it, go ahead. You'll still have time to get to this book. But yes, so that's going to be next week.
You know what's really annoying is if you download the Ancillary of Justice, if you download it to your Nook or e-reader, it says it's like 331 pages. It lies. And you get to like page 296 and it stops. Because then it gets the interview and about the author and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah, no, it's the same in the book too.
I mean, it doesn't end on a cliffhanger, but it definitely ends.
Does it have 355 to 390? So about 40 pages at the end of the book are all just extras. So yeah, as you're reading, you get here and it ends, and you're like, but there's so much more.
Right. I was like, but what happened?
I want more. You can fit another 2 chapters in here. But no, we have 2 more books, so that'll be great.
Yes.
So thank you for joining us. Let me check. So yeah, at this point, we would tell you to go to Twitter, #YarnItAll, to submit how far you've gotten through your projects. I've gotten that far.
I did a few rows, and then I had to do some again because it's lace, and if you don't pay attention, you mess it up.
Are you up to a foot yet?
If I stretch it, maybe. Thank you for joining us this week.
Yes.
We'll see you next week with Myth Directions.
Myth Directions.
Not Myth Conception.
No, that was previous book.
That was previous book.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.